All right, welcome to the newest preview video for the New Year Six podcast. Today I will be taking on the Florida Utah game for Week 1 of the college football season. If you haven't seen my preview videos before, I'm just going to go team by team. Call it some of the keys to victory for each of the teams. What I'm looking for, what I think are high points, low points, and then at the end I'll do an official game prediction. So I'll start off with Florida. Being the road team, got to cover them first. So just looking at the roster and looking at what I think one of the keys to the game might be, I really want to see what this offensive line looks like. So the offensive line last year was, for the most part, really, really good. Had a player drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. Now Cyrus Torrance, consensus first team All-American, has his block, has his stone outside of Ben Hill Griffin. From a sacks allowed perspective, Florida ended up 23rd in the country in sacks allowed, which generally speaking very, very impressive. So if Florida continues to have that type of performance of the offensive line, generally speaking, things will be positive for the offense. The thing is, we can't guarantee that type of performance this year because of the turnover on this O-line. We got guys like Micah Mazuka coming in from Baylor, Damian George coming in from Alabama. So new environment, new playing style, new schemes, all of those things are going to be a factor in the performance of this offensive line. The only really returning starters you got over there are Austin Barber and Kingsley Ngwakin, and Richie Leonard played pretty sporadically, but not necessarily the full-time starter. So generally speaking, a lot of new faces on this line, especially on the starting O-line. There's depth pieces that are new there, and personally speaking, I don't know how they're going to mesh in game one. It may take time. Yeah, the line this year may be deeper than last year, but it may be less top-heavy. There's all of those pieces of speculation that need to be addressed in Week 1 against Utah, and it's not an easy opponent. It's not a cakewalk game. It's not UT Martin or who's Tennessee. Oh, Tennessee's got Virginia. That's not that bad. It's not these Ball State. I'm just thinking who the SEC has this week. But it's not UMass or New Mexico. It's none of them. So it's going to be a real opponent in Week 1, and against a team with a very experienced head coach. A team that builds up that team to be more than what it is on paper, and a real challenge for Florida in Week 1. And the offensive line needs to be ready. The defense will apply pressure. If you are, if you're not prepared for it. Utah last year, from a rushing defense point of view, 18th in the country. Very good D-line last year. So if that O-line is not ready to come to battle against this Utah team, Florida's going to be in trouble. So I'm looking to see what what these new guys on the O-line are going to do. Mazuka, George, all of them, can they hold the pocket for Mertz? Can they allow these plays to develop? Mertz, being such a different quarterback than Anthony Richardson year over year, is going to provide a unique set of both challenges and opportunities for this Florida offense to be different. Whether or not that comes into fruition, we will see in a few days. But for right now, it's a question mark for me. On the areas where Florida did very well last year, the turnover margin was favorable for Florida. They were 12th in the country in turnover margin. So that means Anthony Richardson was not turning the ball over very much. It means Montrell and Etienne were keeping it in their hands and not on the ground. Things like that go a long way in building morale in this team. It means there's forced fumbles and interceptions. Those build that momentum within the program. So if Mertz holds on to the ball at quarterback and is smart with it, throws it away when he needs to, takes the sacks if it needs to happen, I'd rather that than a forced fumble or a bad throw. If he's learned as a quarterback to figure out his pocket presence, read through his progressions, all of those things that we are looking to see from him this year, then the turnover margin should look good. And again, Utah is going to be a tough first matchup for any team. Florida or anyone on the West Coast, can attest to the fact that Utah plays up to their opponent's level, and it's going to be hard to generate a positive turnover margin against Utah. But I think from that perspective, you got to look at Florida and just understand: don't give Utah any easy things. Don't give them any any looks that turn into interceptions. Keep the ball in your hands. Don't give them a chance to take it away from you. Things like that are going to go a long way for Florida to win this game. They did it well last year. There wasn't much of a turnover bug on Florida. We can't see it this year. Florida's going to be in for a very long game. So, looking at that O-line, looking at keeping the ball in your hands, one of the things I need to see improved, and Utah is going to be the test to see if it's there. No more 3rd and Grantham. Just please, for the love of God. And if you are not a Florida fan and you don't know what 3rd and Grantham is, you may know if you're a fan of another team because he's probably coached there too, is on 3rd down and whatever. It could be 3rd and 3. It could be 3rd and 30. The Todd Grantham defensive coaching scheme is play your DBs 10 to 15 yards off their man. I don't know why. It boggles my mind to this day, especially in those 3rd and shorts. Just hit a slant over the middle and you got the first down. Well, Florida continued that last year, even without Todd Grantham as the defensive coordinator. They finished 129th in 3rd down defensive percentage. There's only 131 teams last year, so they were 3rd to last in all of college football. That needs to be better. I expect the defense to be better across the board. I'm just looking across this team. There wasn't really anything that they were good at last year, but they need to play more aggressively on 3rd down. They cannot let Utah take advantage of them and just beat them that way. I think Austin Armstrong as a defensive coordinator is more ready this year to play up to that line and, again, aggressive speed. That's what he's shown in the spring game. That's what he showed in practice, that it's going to be physical. It's going to be high flying. And if that increases the amount of stops that Florida's defense gets on 3rd down, every fan base every fan in the world will look at that game and think, "Oh my God, the answer's finally here," because we have struggled for years with just playing off man and short yard, just hit him over the middle and you got the first down and we'll reset. That cannot happen against Utah. That cannot happen against McNeese. That cannot happen against anyone. Florida needs to play better on 3rd down on defense, and this new opportunity and this new game against Utah is a chance to show if the defense has made any adjustments year over year to fix a multi-year problem. So that's what I'm thinking of Florida. That's what I think they can, what they need to do against Utah, what they'll do well against Utah, what they need to prove that they won't struggle against Utah, all that fun stuff. So kicking it over to Utah and seeing what I'm looking at from them. I'm looking at this linebacker room and some new faces there. There's not a lot of transfers in this room in general. It's definitely more of a homegrown team, which I think is kind of nice. If you are Kyle Whittingham, it means your talent stays home. But I'm interested in Levani DeMooney. So linebacker coming in, and it's a 4-2-5, so there's only 2 of them out there. You got him on one side, and you got Kareem Reed on the other. So generally some younger faces out there, both being juniors. The secondary's pretty young as well. So defense as a whole is pretty young, but we know for the most part what the rest of these guys look like in some capacity. We know Levani DeMooney from his time at Stanford. So again, new program, comes in and ready to make a name for himself on a new campus. Will he be able to adjust? Will he be able to fit into this scheme? Will he be able to play at the caliber that Utah expects of his defense? Stanford last year and Utah last year, 2 very different stories. So coming in from one environment to the next is, it's a show of confidence in Whittingham if they let him start. Shows him that he's ready. But I want to see what he does in a Utah uniform compared to what he's done in a Stanford one. So it's a name that I'm going to look out for. It's a name that I think people should keep an eye on. I just don't know what he's going to look like in in that type of environment. Yeah, we haven't seen it yet. We can't can't determine it. In terms of what Utah did very well last year, they kept the ball in their hands. They are a run-first offense. I think we all kind of know that. They have a very good running back in Jaquindon Jackson. Cam Rising, if he's healthy and if he's playing, is a mobile QB. And that run game kind of goes through those two. And it keeps the ball in their offense's hands. And it gives less opportunities for teams like Florida a chance to score. It gives them less of a chance to win these games. If Utah's going to be, chewing up 7, 8, 9-minute drives, like that's a pretty impactful piece of this game. So if Utah wants to win and they want to keep it in their offense's hand, make this Florida defense gas out. It was a problem with Florida's defense all year last year. So if Utah can do that again and they can, get these guys on oxygen, and by the third and fourth quarter those guys are gassed, Utah could pull ahead late. And that time of possession is going to be a big factor if Utah wins or if they lose. In terms of what Utah did poorly last year, they cannot give up as many points as they did in the red zone. So their red zone defense last year was 104th in the country. And if Florida gets inside the 20, Utah has to make a stop. That's whether it's, I know 3 counts towards that red zone defense number, but it's not as bad as 7. So the way that I'm looking at it is if Utah defense steps up in the red zone, makes it harder for Florida to score touchdowns, even getting 3, that combined with the time of possession for Utah is a lethal combination. So I look at that red zone defense. That's the key for Utah. If they can continue to improve it, if they can get it, you don't even need to be spectacular to get it to middle ground. Get that red zone defense to an average one in the country, and that defense is going to cause a lot of problems for teams, not just Florida, but for everyone they got down the line. That includes Baylor next week. The schedule does not get any easier for Utah. So just work on that red zone defense. Make sure that they are getting stopped, whether it's loading the box on a short run, whether it's playing aggressively as the DBs go up in one-on-one in the end zone, whatever they got to do to stop Florida from scoring. Florida's going to be more of a game progression type team this year. It's not going to be huge runs from Anthony Richardson anymore. It's going to be 10-yard pass to Ricky Pearsall. It's going to be a 6-yard run from Montrell. It's going to come in those types of ways. It's going to be kind of a grinded out type of offense. So the Florida offense will be in the red zone by virtue of running it down their throat. But if Utah can get stops in the red zone, it's a whole different ball game. So those are my thoughts on Florida and Utah. So now it's time to make an official prediction. Utah is the favorite. They are favored by 6.5. And the total is 45.5. I got my little game day piece here. If I'm gonna put it on like college game day, I do not have a Utah hat, so my options are Florida or nothing. And with that, my selection for this game is It's I'm going Utah. I know I'm sacrilegious, but I think Utah's just a very quality team. It's a home game for them, and I think Florida and Utah play each other close. It was a close game last year. It'll be a close game this year. But I'm taking Utah to cover, and then I'm going to take the over on 45.5. So my score prediction is Utah 34, Florida 25. And again, that's computer math. 25 is not a nice looking number, but for the sake of argument, 34-25, so a 9-point game. Really like the over on 45.5. I think that's a little low. I think the offenses do come out to play a little bit more. And again, we really don't know what it looks like from Florida's defense point of view. If they get better, then maybe that goes lower. If Cam Rising doesn't play, maybe if Utah's offense takes a hit. Those are factors, and I understand why they're taking the 45.5. But until I have to go by what I know, and what I know is last year's teams. So I'm taking the over on 45.5. That's the one I really like. But all right, thank you all for watching tonight. Thank you for your thoughts and support. What do you think is going to happen? You think Florida's going to win? Utah's going to win? What are your keys to the game? all of that fun stuff. But tune in next time. We'll be heading over to the one of the Saturday games. The only Saturday game I'm actually going to cover in depth. That is North Carolina versus South Carolina. Game days there in Charlotte, North Carolina, in that neutral site spot. So I'll be covering that in the next video. But until then, leave your thoughts. We'll see you soon.